Anamorphic lens flares look incredibly good and they can easily make your footage look a lot more cinematic. The easiest way to add them to your videos in post is by dragging an overlay on top of your footage, but the issue is they don't usually line up with the light sources at all and they don't interact with your footage in any way. So today I'm going to show you how you can create an anamorphic lens flare effect in Adobe Premiere Pro so that the lens flares are actually coming out of the light sources in the footage. First off, you want to create an adjustment layer. Go to your project panel, click on the new item icon and hit OK. Drag this adjustment layer on top of your footage and scale it to size. Everything that is below the adjustment layer on our timeline will get affected by the effects on our adjustment layer, so if you're working with several clips at the same time, this will make things a little bit more easy. So now let's start creating our anamorphic lens flare effect. Go to your effects panel and search for the Luma key effect and add that to your adjustment layer. You also need to add a solid composite effect. Do note that both of these effects are quite heavy, so your computer may slow down a bit. Next, go to your effect controls panel. If you can't find it, you can open it by clicking on window and choosing effect controls. In here, you want to change the solid composite color to black and the Luma key cutoff value to 100%. The Luma key effect will create a mask based on the brightness values of your footage, and what we want to do is only show the brightest parts of our footage. So let's start to bring down the cutoff value until we only can see the brightest highlights pushing through. If you hold down Command on Mac or Control on Windows while dragging the value, you can change the value in smaller increments. I find a value of around 90% to usually work pretty well, but this all depends on your footage. Now that we can only see our highlights, let's add a directional blur effect. By default, it will blur our footage vertically, so first off, let's change the direction to 90 degrees to have a horizontal blur. Then let's crank up the blur length to something like 300. A smaller light source may get fully blurred out, so you may have to tone down the blur length a bit, but this all depends on your footage, so just experiment to see what works best for you. Now, the last thing we need to do is change our blending mode to screen. This will make sure only the bright parts of our layer are visible, and that is it. We now have anamorphic lens flares in our footage. If you want them to be stronger, you can make your footage brighter by pulling up on the RGB curves in Lumetri Color, essentially making your flares stronger. One very common thing with anamorphic lens flares is that they have a color tint to them. We can add that very easily by adding a tint effect to our adjustment layer and dragging that below our Luma key. You can then change the tint color of both the white and the black points to whatever looks good for you. The black point doesn't really actually matter that much because our flares are so bright, but it's better to just put them both to the same color just in case. But that is it. That is how you can easily create an anamorphic lens flare effect in Adobe Premiere Pro so that the flares actually interact with your footage and come out from the light sources instead of using overlays. That is all I have for today. Thank you for watching and I hope I will see you in the next one. Shba.